In Thoughts and Feelings Happiness Part 1, I talked about how emotions don't really work for me the same way they work for a lot of other people I know, specifically happiness, and how what makes me happy seems to be work differently from how what makes other people happy. In that video, I talked about weather, how certain weather patterns, specifically thunder, storms, and snow, make me happy. Today, I want to talk about another thing that makes me happy in sort of an unusual way, which is patterns. I really love patterns. In kindergarten and first grade, I was always really good at those lines of shapes and like which shape comes next. Finish the pattern. Always really good at those. Love to do them. Or the one of these things is not like the others type problems where it's like each of these pictures has an identical match except one. Find the one that doesn't. Stuff like that. Really good at it. Nailed it. Always loved it. Makes me happy. And I think I just like the predictability of things. So there's something very beautiful to me about a repeating pattern. Its predictability and symmetry helps. For instance, I really love prime numbers. Not all prime numbers. It's well specifically 3, 5, and 7, and their multiples. So forget about the prime numbers thing. Just like these three specific prime numbers, 3, 5, and 7, and multiples thereof. I don't like even numbers, something about them. I think it's that because there's not one thing in the middle, they always feel sort of incomplete to me. Whereas with odd numbers, there's the one thing in the middle, and you can kind of build everything out from there. It's like 5. You can get symmetry with 5. It's harder to get symmetry with 6, I think, unless it's a radial design, in which case I really love hexagonal radial designs. Incidentally, snowflakes are hexagonal radial designs, which I think is one of the reasons they make me happy. Also, fractals. They're infinite symmetrical patterns that just repeat forever and ever and ever, and I love it. I also really like activities that have to do with patterns. So, like, you can see Legos. Not all Legos, but Harry Potter Legos I've gotten into in recent years. Actually, these are, I don't know if it's easy to tell, these are the last few chapters of my favorite Harry Potter book, arranged in chronological order. It's a mirror image, so it's harder to tell that. So from the Shrieking Shack to the Dementors to Sirius's escape from Hogwarts, the last few chapters of my favorite Harry Potter book are arranged in Lego form on my bookshelf. I really like, I didn't always, I was kind of a fan of Legos, not as much as like my brother. More recently, I've gotten into it, and I think it just sort of occurred to me like, there's a lot of possibilities with this. You're just following a pattern, and it becomes the design you want. It's easier than like drawing for me, as far as like I have all the supplies I need, I have the instructions to make it. It's predictable, and it will turn out exactly as I want it to, as long as I follow the instructions. So I have a little more control there, which is another thing that makes me happy. I also enjoy perler beads, those little beads that fuse together on the pegboard. I have dozens and dozens of them, and they're all like, most of them are replicas of my favorite fictional characters, like this little guy. So that's always kind of funny. I have a closet full of my favorite fictional characters. It's not creepy like that, but sometimes it sounds a little weird. um, but I just enjoy it because I get to make my own patterns. I get to make it look how I want. I can make it symmetric. I can't draw stuff symmetrically, but these things, they're just arranged in little pixels. I can make them as symmetrical as I want. I also enjoy knitting because, again, it's this repetitive motion. There's a pattern. The textures are also fun. I love different yarn textures. I think wool blends are probably my favorite, just because it's not too soft. It's a little scratchy, so it's provides nice variety. But it's this very soothing, just repetition of motion. Converse, one of the best illustrations I think for patterns making me happy is an exercise I did in class just this last year. The teacher was talking to the class about how the human brain is programmed, if you will, to recognize patterns over details. So we'll just kind of like take in the general pattern and usually just fill in the details from memory. I'm not like that. I'm hypersensitive to the details of the pattern, and like if something breaks the pattern, I get upset. Which you will see in this little anecdote. To illustrate the point of the human brain recognizing patterns over detail, the instructor showed us 15 pictures of pennies and told us only one of these is real and challenged us to try to find the real one. And none of them were like, it wasn't glaringly obvious. Some of them, like the Abe Lincoln head was turned the wrong way. Of the dozen or so of us, and then the few in that dozen who actually made guesses, I was actually the only one who guessed correctly. But it wasn't because I've memorized what a real penny looks like over a counterfeit. The real penny made me happy. And it's kind of odd, but let me explain. So I would look at these different pictures of pennies, and I looked at a couple of them, I was like, I don't like that one. That one makes me feel kind of on edge. I don't like that one. And then I looked at this one. It was the first picture in the lineup. It was like, I better look at that one. It made me happy. I felt very inexplicably happy looking at that single penny. It was the correct one. It was the real one. So even though I wasn't conscious of it, I could sort of subconsciously tell this is the one that fits. Everything else didn't fit the pattern I had in my head, whatever I had in my head. If you handed me an individual counterfeit penny, I probably couldn't tell. But having a bunch of counterfeits and then one that I knew one of these is real, I was able to tell which one was real because it, I don't know, fit some kind of pattern I had in my head without even realizing I had it. But it fit my expectations, I think, is what I was trying to get at there. So yeah, patterns make me happy. Usually breaks in a pattern, like in the aforementioned example, make me acutely uncomfortable, even if like there's no harm to me. But because it's not, like it doesn't fit that what I thought was going to happen, I get upset. Except in a few cases, it's kind of funny and random. There's a few times where a break in the pattern has actually been exciting for me. I think because it like breaks the pattern in some way to make something more pleasing, I guess, and I'll explain what I mean in a minute. But so this was before my diagnosis. Frozen 2 had just come out, and you know, there was sort of aggressive promotion for the movie. One of the ways they were promoting it, there was this ice cream. I forget which brand it was, but it was mint ice cream, which is one of my favorite kinds, and is usually green or white. This mint ice cream was blue. That's a break in my expectations. However, blue is my favorite color. So my brain is like, oh, my favorite ice cream, my favorite color. Why has no one ever thought of this before? This is brilliant. And I was actually starting to get some weird looks because I was like, oh my gosh, look, it's blue mint ice cream. It is blue mint ice cream. I was like processing out loud the fact that someone made blue mint ice cream. And I was even like, why can't I stop talking about the fact that there's blue mint ice cream? And then a couple years later, I got my diagnosis and I was like, oh, that's why. I like patterns. This broke the pattern, and that's why I couldn't stop talking about it. But it wasn't like a makes me uncomfortable kind of break the pattern. It's, oh my gosh, this is two of my favorite things have now been combined into one breaks the pattern. Which is why it was exciting for me, and like, usually breaks in the pattern make me upset. This one didn't, because it's two things that make me happy combining into one. Yeah, so patterns. Predictability equals happiness. Not in extreme measures, obviously. Like I can get bored. But yeah. That's kind of the rundown on what makes me happy. And Next video, we'll delve into what makes me angry, which I assure you is going to be interesting.